But here's another character who's absolutely wonderful.
Blacquill.
Oh my gosh, I love Blackquill.
I did not expect to like Blacquill as much, but the second he came in Dual Destinies, I was just like, I like this guy.
Which is funny because of when he comes in Dual Destinies, they're like, yeah, this guy's a convict, and he's also
he's a murderer who was arrested, but then they brought him out to prosecute cases.
I'm just like, I'm not even surprised that they would do that in Ace Attorney.
It's the Dark Age of the Law.
That's always been the Dark Age of the Law. But honestly, would you be surprised if, granted, if he didn't die off screen, if suddenly, even though, like, if Manfred von Karma or Godot came back to prosecute even after they were incarcerated, like, would you bat an eye at that?
No.
Like, but just, it was so funny. But from the moment he stepped in the courtroom, granted, he had such an over-the-top extra design. How could you not be called to that attention? But then the moment he came in for that case with Apollo and Athena, like, I think it's Monstrous Turnabout it was.
Yeah.
With Yokai Lane and all that good stuff. From the moment he came in, though, and he just was just
nonchalant.
He was like, yeah, like he didn't care, but then the second you questioned him, he immediately got violent, and I was just like, I like this guy.
He acts like a samurai, but he's like, he doesn't have a sword with him, but he can still cut things. And
he's even better in the English, the localization,
because he's not Japanese in the English.
Yeah, because it would make sense if he had a Japanese fixation in the Japanese. I mean, not well, yeah, okay, samurai fixation. Whereas in the localized version, he has a samurai and Japanese fixation. So it just, he's a weeaboo.
He calls people dono. He's like, he's using Japanese.
Justice dono, right? Dono.
He's using you know, Japanese honorifics, and it's just like, you're white.
Well, not even just honorifics, like, because then usually it would be, the polite version would be san, like it'd be like Justice san, right san, but no, he uses one of the utmost politest of polite, and so it's really funny that this guy who is so willing to assault you on multiple occasions would also address you in such an utmost respectful manner. It's so jarring.
Well, and it's even funnier when you his character becomes even more interesting, because he's already entertaining, but he becomes more interesting when you actually get into the plot and his relationship to Athena.
Well, yeah, the good thing about Dual Destinies is, since they're introducing Athena as the newest character, they decided to intertwine the new prosecutor with the new character story, like, so perfectly. Like, everything was intertwined perfectly, so Athena's character arc matched perfectly with Blackwill's character arc.
Which works well with Phoenix's character arc, which works well with Apollo's character arc, and everyone has this big story going on.
It's just so, like, I know Dual Destiny's not a perfect game, but in terms of story, I love its story. Like, it's, like, such a good story. Like, and I loved all the new characters. And I will say, granted, he's on the list, and we'll get into him later, but they did a much better job of introducing a new character that Phoenix is going to mentor with the new prosecutor, having their stories actually intertwined and interwoven, compared to, say, Apollo and Klavier. We'll get to Klavier later, but but with Blackquill is how it was. That's how you do it right.
You make him important. You act, and especially once you get to, what was it, Turnabout for Tomorrow?
Oh, God.
And you actually get the full context for Blackwill's character and his relationship to Athena, being like a big brother to her. He adored her. He adored, was it Metis?
Yeah, Metis.
He adored her and was basically doing everything he could to take.
And it ties into his whole samurai personality.
Yeah.
Like, in the way, like, even though Metis was his mentor in terms of psychology, because if he was the first person that wanted to put psychology in with lawyering, but so then he was learning all about that from Metis, and then Athena comes later on, and she really hammers in the psychology. But it's very similar to a samurai's relationship with, like, the master of, like, of their home. Like a samurai that works for, like, you know, like the lord or lady of a castle, like, is very, very samurai, and, like, loyalty, like, man, like, he is, like, Ride or die loyalty.
Well, he literally took the blame for the murder just to make sure that Athena wasn't pinned for the murder.
Like, he didn't even think Athena did it, I don't think.
No, he just did it.
I mean, maybe a part of him suspected it, but at the same time, it's just like, no, it's not possible. Because he was also hyper-fixated on looking for the Phantom, too. So I think he suspected that there definitely had to have been something else
But he took all of the blame onto himself.
But he knew if he was innocent, and if he was proven innocent, then immediately the only other person that was in the room, physically, that anybody could be proven was Athena, and it would have been pinned on her, and he absolutely did not want that to happen.
Well, and there's too much evidence against her, which is what Oren tried to use later on.
Yeah, which is why he fabricated a whole bunch of evidence to make sure it was pinned on him. Like, this guy was willing to go to jail to die on death row.
To protect his mentor's daughter.
Like, like that is some ride or die loyalty.
And it's like, and that's one thing that drives a Blackquill from just being entertaining to being like, to absolutely loving his character.
Like an amazing character.
Well, and that's what puts him up there with Edgeworth and Franziska. Like, he's a new character. He was only in Dual Destinies introduced.
Like, out of all the newest characters in, like, the newer trilogy, from Apollo Justice all the way to Spirit of Justice, and especially in terms of prosecutors, Blackquill is definitely my favorite. He's, like, amazing.
Well, it's like, and especially after some of the other, you know, the prosecutors weren't really as into, like, Blackquill comes in and he's already at the level, nearly at the level of Franziska and Edgeworth for me, just because he has all of those elements in the story and he's entertaining.
Well, and also speaking of music, because granted, I didn't talk much about music for Franziska or Edgeworth because of, I can't even remember really Franziska's theme that well. Edgeworth
I don't remember any of their themes.
Edgeworth has got way too many themes to count.
Oh, I remember Godot's theme.
Oh yeah, Godot was the first time. Yeah, Godot was the stupid saxophone guy. But okay, Godot was the first time a prosecutor had a very memorable theme. Even though Edgeworth does have a couple memorable themes, though some of the better ones are from Investigations and Investigations 2. Because even though I haven't played Investigations 2, I have listened to it online, and he does have some very good themes. But then you have Klavier, and okay, yes, Klavier does have a really amazing theme. But in terms of a prosecutor that I absolutely adore, because, okay, first off, yes, I do like Godot, don't get me wrong, people, but no, like, I mean, like, adore on the same level that I do Franziska, because she is second only to Edgeworth and my favorite prosecutor, so love of that level, to somebody that has a memorable theme. The moment you hear that dun 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 dun, dun 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 dun, doo doo, doo-doo, dun 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 dun. Like it's such a very low, like laid back almost kind of theme, especially compared to before him, Klavier's like rock theme, like so hardcore, like whatever, but like it's very relaxed kind of a theme, but at the same time it's also mysterious, and at the same time it's also a little bit menacing. At least those first chords, that dun, 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 dun. Like it's a little bit, just a little bit menacing, not a lot, just a little bit, and it just, and it also sounds very samurai, kind of like a very samurai type of like instrumental like theme, like for a samurai character, and that song is so perfectly Blackquill, like everything about it, a little bit menacing, a bit mysterious, but also can be kind of low-key at times, until of course he gets hostile, which is where the menacing part comes in.
Yeah.
But just I love him.
They did such a good job with Blackquill. Like it's actually really impressive. Like, and especially in not Dual Justice, but Spirit of Justice.
Oh.
One of the highlights of that game was when Blackquill shows up for a very short case with Athena.
Okay, think back. When has an Ace Attorney fan have ever said that one of the highlights of a game was the middle filler case? I mean, yes, people.
I love Spirit of Justice, the entirety of it, but that one case when it's just a short, it only has like what, 2 sections to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, two
no investigating, like all just in the courtroom.
Yeah, it's just a 2-section case with
It
Athena.
almost plays out like the very first case
Yeah.
every game does, where you're just in the courtroom, but because of the first case, Spirit of Justice is so freaking long, I think they're like, okay, there's a short case finally. But it's like, like, think about it. Like, we've had, okay, Turnabout Samurai, the Steel Samurai case, and yes, I do love that case. But, I mean, every second case of a game, or, like, middle case of a game, always gets a bad rep for being not as good as all the other cases. Like, because, granted, some people will hate on some of those middle cases. Top Turnabout is the biggest offender for that.
The biggest offender of that is it just drags on.
Well, yeah, and it's mostly in the investigation.
Yeah, the investigations part just takes forever, and then
and then there's Moe's testimony, the freaking clown. How you would get penalized just because he would tell a bad joke, and I'm like, it's not my fault if he tells a bad joke, but whatever. But I never minded that one because for that one, I always made sure to have the guide out, so that way it would make it less tedious.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. But a lot of middle cases always have a rep in the Ace Attorney fandom for, like, if they're not bad in people's opinions, people will find them as, like, well, they're
just sort of...
They're just okay. Or they're, like, they're very, like, where everything else is here, it's right here. But Turnabout Storyteller, like, it's a filler case. It has nothing to do with either Phoenix's story of going on in Khura'in or Apollo's overarching story that is pretty much...
It's literally just a filler case that
It's
Athena
just a filler
takes.
case with Athena. And then, but it's just...
And it wouldn't even be that, interesting if it wasn't for the fact that Blackquill is her co-counsel. He literally just decides to invite himself to the defense. And
he faces off against the new prosecutor of that game.
Nahyuta.
And by that point in the game, you still hate Nahyuta's guts. So for everybody, I'm sure, playing that game, it's so cathartic just to have Blackquill on your side, just to have him as your attack dog against the new one, like the new pompous guy, and you're just like, yes. But, oh gosh, like, yes, like, that case, Blackquill stole the show on that case. I know it's supposed to be Athena's big case.
Well, and all the people involved in the case were actually friends of Blackquill, which is how Athena gets involved in the first place, because the guy who's being charged with murder was an old friend of Blackquill. So, he's the connected one. He's the one who's like, no, I need to be involved in this case.
But what was also really funny is whenever Athena meets him, because he contacts her, but he doesn't even contact her to be the defense attorney. He was expecting her to either drag along Phoenix or Apollo. Granted, he was hoping for Phoenix, which really says something about Blackquill. Sure, he'll be hostile to Phoenix, but he does respect Phoenix. Because he's just like, where's right, Dono? She's just like, you didn't... Oh, she's like, that's right. She's like, we were in such a rush, and when you told me to hurry up here, she's like, I forgot to tell you. He's kind of overseas right now. He's just like, what? He's like, quick. There could still be time. Get him on the phone right now and tell him to get him to fly. It's just like, I don't think there is time to get him to fly all the way over from a country that's over the seas, but sure, whatever. And then he's just like, very well, then I guess I'll settle for justice, Donna, then. She's like, he's in the middle of a magic show with Trucy right now. He's just like, no. He's just like, you will go to that show and you will drag him here by his horns if you have to. And I'm just like, love Blackquill, just the way he phrases things. And she's just like, hey, are you saying I can't take this case? And he's just like, you're a green. She's just like, she's like, yellow's my color. He's just like, you're a novice is what I'm telling you, Athena. But I also love how they're both on a first name basis, which really tells you a lot, especially about Blackquill. Because everybody is like, whatever, Dono, blah, 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 Dono. But he's like actually Athena, which really shows how he's a very big brother figure to her.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, and it's just so funny because she's just all smiles and cute, and he's just, well, just look at any image of Simon Blackquill.
Goth.
And he's always,
Goth samurai.
And he's always so sour, especially with the bags under his eyes. I think Nahyuta said himself, just like a, a panda, where he calls Athena the spring chick, and it really just, like, yeah. That is kind of their dynamic. It's such a strange dynamic, but that's what made also that case so entertaining. It was because of how strange it was to have Blackquill on your side of the court. And it was almost kind of really funny to see all of his animations, like his 3D sprite animations, but seeing it from a different perspective on the side of, like, standing right next to you. Like, whatever he has is, like, back turned like that, but just to see Athena looking at him like that. Or to see him do his mannerisms, like, where he, like, the way he slaps the desk, or when he's laughing and he does that same, like, laugh animation, or when he does that glare animation. but it's all from the opposite side of the courtroom. So it's really funny to see that. And just, oh, that whole case was just so hilarious. But everything about Blackquill is hilarious. He's like Franziska in that regard.
But slightly more self-aware.
Oh,
a little.
Everything about Blackquill is so funny. And just, there's too many funny, awesome moments with him. Especially the moments where everybody freaks out in Dual Destinies when he constantly keeps breaking the shackles.
Yeah.
Like, they're just like, at this point, I think even Apollo at some point was like, you guys ever gonna get him stronger ones? Yes.
And he just goes, shah, and shatters him.
It's just like the fact that he's that strong, though. Or gosh, whatever the DLC case for,
Gee, the Orca case.
The Orca case. And I just love it because as the trial starts, Phoenix is about to start his opening statement. He's like, Your Honor, the defense and then Phoenix will be like, ah! Like Blackquill immediately attacks him. And not because of Phoenix did anything. He's just so mad because he's like, are you kidding me? I'm here to prosecute
an orca?
An orca? A freaking whale? An animal? This is what you people drag me out of the clink for? But he just takes it out on Phoenix, or that moment where he goes to slice at Phoenix, and instead, like the little thing, like his little hair
his little hair,
and then you see the hair sliced off. Phoenix is like, no, my hair. I so desperately one of these days wanted to see him slice at Apollo, and then suddenly his little antennas just, and then Bella's just like, no, my do,
my one distinctive feature,
my very distinct feature. I love it. Oh, but I also love how, like, yes, how far he was willing to go to protect Athena, but it's even more apparent when Athena was trying to prove him innocent, like when she's doing her whole mood matrix, and he just kept piling on lie after lie after lie, and just, oh man, like, you just, like, this guy is so dedicated, and even when his sister is, like, she's like, I'm holding people hostage, this is serious, brother, I'm gonna get you proven innocent, and he's just like, nope. I did it, and there's nothing you can do to change that, sis. It's just like, I could kill people, and he's just like, and you're gonna go to jail for that like me. That's how life goes. But he was so dedicated. And it's funny how dedicated both the Blackwills were to Metis's memory, because that's why Aura did all that. I mean, it wasn't just because of, yes, the biggest reason was she didn't want to see her brother die, but it was also because of she wanted Aura's real killer to get justice. Granted, she
thought it was Athena.
Wrong, and a part of me almost wishes she would at least be a little bit conflicted in trying to finger, you know, her best friend's daughter, but...
To frame a teenager for murder.
Who was a child, but then again, they were gonna, like, oh, well, Edgeworth killed his dad when he was a child, apparently, even though he really didn't. We're just going to arrest him, even though technically that would be considered an accidental death. But whatever, Ace Attorney is pretty warped when it comes to the
dark age of the law.
But it's just like, it's actually really heartwarming how dedicated those two were to Metis and her memory. That both of them would go to such extremes. What was funny was how different they went about it. I mean, granted, and also to protect someone they really cared about. Someone who either is actually their sibling or like a sibling to them. Blackquill was willing to go to jail
and even die
and die to protect Athena, whereas Aura was willing to commit a crime, holding people hostage, several people, hold them hostage, like, and threaten, like, their lives. Like, yeah, I might end up killing somebody if you don't prove my brother innocent. Like, it's like, wow. Granted, you both need to chill a little bit, but it's like, but it shows how dedicated the Blackwills are.
It's a thought that counts.
Like how dedicated they are to people they care about, and it's like, and it makes them both such interesting characters. And Blackquill, especially, and how funny Blackquill is. Gosh, he's so funny. Everything that comes out of his mouth is so funny. He's such a depressing looking character, and he's got such a dark attitude, but he's so funny doing it. Like, he's
comedy gold. And I think he's one of the reasons why Dual Destinies was so good.
I love him. Like,
it's like, I enjoyed having him as your prosecutor for the entire game, from the beginning to the end.
He's so great. Every line that comes out of his mouth is great. And the fact that he's got the samurai motif, but at the same time he slightly phrases his words like a British person would, except for that one time when he randomly said, "What in tarnation?" And I was like, why is this guy, who sometimes talks slightly British, but has a Japanese samurai fetish, is a white guy, talks like he's from Kentucky?
Oh no! There's also the times where he comes up with these wacky stories of different.
Oh yeah, like of all these people, that can just sound.
So I had a cellmate who was also a chef.
Like yeah, he's just like, so a samurai murdering chef. Like Apollo's like, what? Like he has all these random stories about things he's like that he's learned or gossip that he's heard. He's like, yeah, I heard about that when I was in the clink from this cellmate I had this one time. And sometimes
wasn't there like a mime or something that was a murderous mime?
I'm sure there was.
I can't remember all of the different stories.
I can't keep track of all of them. Like some of them, I'm pretty sure he makes up on the fly,
yeah.
just because he knows people won't question him.
Are you really going to go into jail and investigate if I talked about a murderous mime?
Well, but at the same time, are you really going to question Simon Blackquill, or are you going to take his word for it?
We'll just take our word that you've been a murderous mime.
And Taka, the fact that he's allowed to, because animals are prohibited in the courtroom usually, unless they're on the witness stand and Phoenix has to, like cross-examine them. And I'm like, but he's got a hawk as a pet
that he uses to attack people. Even the judge, it'll perch on the judge's head.
But not only that, apparently he's befriended this hawk for years, which means, but he didn't have this hawk before he was in jail, which means he met this hawk while he was somehow in prison, and there's a noodle incident somewhere about that.
Yeah, Taco was his cellmate at one point. Here, we arrested this bird, Blackquill. He's your new cellmate.
And the fact that he has a love of birds, like especially in the DLC case where he's just like, the only attraction worthwhile like at that aquarium is penguins. And I'm just like, Blackquill priorities. Like, oh,
they're God. Black and white birds. Perfect.
like at one point, like there was a witness on the witness stand in the DLC case that I still remember, and I was laughing so hard at, where he's just like, witness, he's like, you will keep your disparaging comments, from wonderful creatures such as birds. And then I'm just like, Simon priorities. And then he switches to, he's like, if you must have disparaging comments, then please direct all of them only at the defense. I'm just like, Simon, Athena is part of the defense. Why are you so mean?
You can't keep getting away with this.
Oh, but I love him. He's so funny. But yeah, we talked a lot about him. But
yeah,
he is so memorable.
So let's talk about the next one. Arguably one of the most, the ones that I had the biggest turnaround on.
I mean, granted, it didn't take years. It took one game. Nahyuta Samedi. Oh man, Nahyuta.
Man, that was one of the weirdest ones because for almost the entirety of the game, I hated Nahyuta. I hated the way he treated everyone. I hated him in court. I hated him out of court.
And still not even hate in the same way like you hate Manfred von Karma, because that one okay.
He's meant to be evil. You're meant to hate Manfred.
But I guess technically they are intentionally wanting you to hate Nahyuta, but I don't know. It's a different thing. With Manfred, it didn't irritate me. While it was very like, you got a big when you beat him.
No, it's the whole game. You're like, you got a big storm coming. The whole time.
And I'm like, but at the same time, you hate him, but you enjoy hating him because he's a villain. He's supposed to be despicable. Whereas technically, Nahyuta is also the rival prosecutor. But at the same time, he's supposed to be like, he's supposed to be this holy man. He's supposed to be this good person, as everybody keeps saying. But
he's so self-righteous and arrogant.
So it is.
And this is worse than what Manfred Edgeworth was.
And Manfred was self-righteous too. But it's like, it's hard to put it into words. But it's just like, so pompous, so self-righteous, so holy.
Well, and you also had to deal with this over the course of the entire game.
Yeah,
Manfred was one case.
One case, that's true.
So, and you have to deal with this attitude, and you have to deal with him over and over, and especially when you find out that I
think the other part of it is Manfred. You were set up to like, okay, this is the big bad prosecutor. Because even Edgeworth is like, he's the one who taught me everything I know. He's 10 times worse than me, and blah, 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 blah. Whereas when you meet Nahyuta, and that's for Trucy's case, the magic showcase, then you get hints that Nahyuta and Apollo once knew each other.
Right, and he's basically the Edgeworth to Apollo's Phoenix.
But they're foster brothers. But granted, they don't admit that yet. But you know that they've had history, like
right, because Apollo literally goes, "Is this how you're going to treat us, Nahyuta?"
Like, guess like after all these years, really, this is how you're gonna be? And he's just like, "What happened to you?" And Athena's like, "Whoa, there is a lot of context I'm missing here." And I'm just like, well, to be fair, Athena, you kind of did the same thing to everybody at Dual Destiny, so we're all even.
Yeah.
but it's just like, you're just like, whoa, like, it's just like. And it's even worse than Edgeworth in a way, almost.
Oh, well, much worse than
Edgeworth. Because Edgeworth was pompous. He was holier than thou. He was self-righteous, but... You
saw a lot of those shades of him being better earlier.
But gradually, Edgeworth did get better over the course of the first game. Nahyuta stayed the same the whole time up until the very end, when you realize, oh, that was all an act the entire time.
Yeah, it took to the end of the game where you find out that all of his douchiness, all of his arrogance, all of his rudeness was all because he had to be that way because Godot was threatening Rafa, his sister.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then when he basically he takes off his glove and he reveals, he has the dragon tattoo, and he goes, a dragon never yields, and it's like,
and then you realize that's why he put himself through this. He was never, I mean, even though technically you could say, well, he was blackmailed, you know. And I was like, yes, he was blackmailed, and he was technically yielding to Godot, but at the same time, in a sense, he was never yielding his love for his little sister, and he was never yielding his dedication to protect her. Like, he was 100% loyal. I'm going to protect my little sister no matter what, and I want her to become queen someday, and I don't want anything to ruin her chances.
And even if it's my happiness has to be sacrificed.
I want my happiness, my dignity, my
life.
My integrity. He sacrificed his own integrity and his conscience just to be this evil woman's, like, basically her whipping boy, her slave.
Yeah.
And even though people kind of hate on him for that, they're like, really? They're like, even Dirk pointed out if he just came to him, he could help. And I'm like, okay, but think about it this way. If Godot revealed that Rafa was not her and Inga's child, that she was actually the child of Godot's sister and Dirk, you know, the rebel. I mean, we've seen over the course of the games how hated lawyers are in Khura'in because of all their propaganda, and especially all the rebels, like how they're demonized, like. And even Dirk, he's like propped up to be like this horrifying terrorist, and then when you meet him, you find out he's like this dork dad with like terrible puns.
Yeah, he makes dad jokes.
I'm like, but it's just like there's such a hatred for like lawyers, like defense attorneys, lawyers, and for the rebels especially. And I'm like, because they think, first off, they think that Dirk killed their queen Amara. And so, but then they like hate all attorneys because all this propaganda and because of Garan, because of she, like, is the reason for this. And I'm like, you really think that if the truth came out that Rafa is actually Dirk's child, that people would just be like, whoa, we don't want her to be queen, and then they'd leave her alone and she'd get up? No. Like, the fact that...
There'd be a bloodbath over it.
I mean, the fact that whenever Athena shows up in the very first game, and they were just like, death to that lawyer! Like, and Phoenix is like, whoa! This went 0 to 10 real quick! Like, just like they, like, manipulated the populace to, like, such vitriol levels.
Well,
like,
and yeah, it became such manipulative that the defense attorneys weren't even allowed to do anything. Phoenix had to convince them to let him cross-examine someone because they use the
well, and then there's like
the seance, and then boom, you're guilty.
They're like, oh, well, if your client gets the death penalty, then you get the death penalty too.
And you get the death penalty for all crimes. And
I'm just like, good freaking grief! Like, you really think that Rafa would have been able to at least escape alive if that was revealed? No.
It's like, yeah, he had reasons. Now, granted, let's be fair here, because Nahyuta did go too far. He basically was pissing on everyone to keep up his facade, and he really didn't need, especially not to Apollo. He could have at least been just sort of like cold with Apollo. He was like hostile to him, and I'm like...
I mean, granted, you could theorize that maybe it was because of it made it easier to bear the guilt, because then it's like, well, if I'm such scum for doing this, at the very least, maybe it'll justify it. Then I'll make everyone hate me, so then it'll make the pain easier or something.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, it's like I said, that was the biggest turnaround for me, because there were times when some of my feelings have changed over the course of the game, but the biggest one was Nahyuta.
Oh, Nahyuta was such a huge change.
It's like, I hated...
Well, and at the same time, as both of us, we adore Rafa, so, like, if I was in that position, honestly, and I'm like, yeah, I would become a scummy prosecutor, and
I would do horrible things.
I would totally do, because it's just big mood. I love Rafa. Like,
it's like even Phoenix is basically like, the second he meets her, he's just like, I'm adopting you. I'm her mother now.
She's so cute. She's like the second coming of Franziska. I love her. She's so great. I love Rafa. Like, and
so yeah, I mean, it's understandable why you would go that far, particularly once you get all the revelations of the true family tree of the Korean royal family, and it's like, oh.
And I will say, even when he's scummy, he is pretty memorable when he's being scummy, because he does it.
Especially when he's praying for their souls in the afterlife.
Let it go and move on. And I was just sitting there, and I'm just like,
let it go.
Let it go. He was like, you want to see me let go? I'll let go. I'll let go and let loose. It's like, let me punch him.
I wanted to punch him so badly. I actually said, I think I said this when I was live blogging, that I wouldn't have minded halfway through the game if he died, because I legitimately did not like him that much. But then at the end, I'm just like, okay, I changed my mind. I actually like Nahyuta.
I was like, oh man, but oh gosh. That's why it was so wonderful having Blackquill as Nahyuta's co-counsel, because you could have Blackquill just sicking him on Nahyuta. Like, that was just so wonderful. But but even some of his lines and some of the ways he kept phrasing things, where it's just like, he's like, perhaps you will be born again in another life as like some pathetic life form. I can't even remember. Like,
there was one of them where it was like a flea or a cockroach.
Yeah, like a flea or a cockroach, and he just like randomly would say things, or just his nicknames, like how he just kept emphasizing the word putrid. He uses putrid as often as Franziska uses the word fool.
Yeah.
Or just like, just like things like reverse panda, spring chick. I can't remember what he called Apollo. Something like red hot beans or something like that. I don't know, but. He just had nicknames for everybody.
Well, and the fact that one of his attacks is that he would use his prayer beads to lock someone up. Because I remember the first time it happens to Phoenix, and he gets locked up, and he's like, I can't point to object. What's going on?
And then he put it around like Apollo's like bracelet so that he can't perceive. I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is an actual thing. I can't believe it.
Also, hamburgers.
Yeah. Oh yes, they brought back like the hamburger joke like with Maya. But instead of like saying, oh, he's come to Japan, like in the Japanese version, and he gets to experience ramen for the first time, and suddenly he has a fascination with ramen, they thought, like, no, let's bring back the burger joke, but let's make it even more overt. Like, and so he's constantly like, just like jalapeno jack cheeseburger.
But he's like, here you have this.
But he's this holy looking.
He's this Asian holy man who
like
comes in.
Extremely pretty boy.
He's got the whole white hair, but he's just like, I would like a jalapeno cheddar jack burger.
Just like, so funny. I just like, it's so like, it so doesn't fit.
Well, I think someone drew a comic of him going to a McDonald's.
Like or at Burger King or something like that. Like,
but he's like, he has all these holy lights coming around him with the floating things.
And he's like, what would you like to order, sir? And he's like, I would like a hamburger, please, with jalapeno jack cheese. And then the guy's just like, suddenly he starts crying. He's like, he's so beautiful. It's just like, have you ever seen a holy person so beautiful you cry?
Yeah, it was like, it was funny. All the characters.
I do love Nahyuta memes. Like, the memes from Nahyuta are honestly really funny.
Yeah, it's like...
Or whatever, he's just like, I've learned the phrases of your country. What is crack-a-lackin', homie?
That gets me every time.
It's somebody even drew art of, like, where he says, what's crack-a-lackin', homie? And Apollo's just like, never say that again. And then the artist's comments like, how could such a beautiful person be so socially unacceptable?
Everything about him is unacceptable.
I just, oh gosh, he's very memorable. Even when I hated him, he was too dang memorable. Like, just, oh gosh. What a turnaround, though. Everything about him was just...
Turn around, Nahyuta.
It's just, so great. The memes with him were great. And the whole like thing with Dirk, because I love Dirk's character so much, and then you realize, oh, this is Dirk's son, and then you know there's a whole story behind it. But then at the time where I hated Nahyuta, but I loved Dirk, and I'm like, but how could such a scummy thing come from you, Dirk? You're wonderful.
Well, so yeah, especially when you find out,
You're like, oh, and then you feel bad because you realize, oh.
He actually did believe in Dirk's, beliefs, and the lawyer and the dragons never yield. And it's like, but then he was forced to go against all of that to protect Rafa.
You're just like, Garan! Like, oh, you horrible woman. But, and then the other thing is, it's so amusing how, like, he looks nothing like his dad, but every bit looks beautiful like his mother.
Yeah, it's like when you actually see Amara, you're like, oh. It's like immediately I was like, oh, so that's who your mom is. It's like it was too obvious.
Well, especially because of like the randomly how like a stupid butterfly will come fly to him, but then you see like all these animals come like flocking to Amara like some Disney princess. Okay, so Nahyuta, he was great. I think that about covers it. Granted, I mean, I guess I could say I did think his relationship with his detective was pretty humorous comparing to other past prosecutors, because a lot of them were so mean to poor Gumshoe and like always threatening to dock their pay, and Emma absolutely could not stand Klavier.
Well, it's like, and she was so mad with Nahyuta too, because that's when she brought back the snackoos, and that was when I first saw her. She's all happy because she's like, I became a forensic detective.
But she wasn't as mad. You'll notice. You'll notice she actually had some nice words to say about Nahyuta. She has no nice words about Klavier, but she actually has some nice things to say about Nahyuta. She
still didn't like him dragging her around everywhere because he basically was forcing her to go back and forth between the United States and Korea.
But I will say that is pretty fun. I mean, okay, I know I'm biased because I recently, when I replayed it, I started to ship it, and I was like,
I don't.
And I was like, no. No, and I'll say, I was very resistant. I did try to put up a resistance. I'm like, no, I don't. No. And the game was like, yes, you do. And I was like, no! And then I realized, crap, I do. But I will say, even before I realized I started shipping it, when I first played it, I did kind of find it strangely a little bit endearing that Nahyuta took a liking to Emma.
Even if she didn't like him.
And it was so weird because if he's this very religious holy man and she's all science, and I'm like, but it really says something about her if he felt the need to bring her all the way back to Karain after, Trucy's case, because that's where obviously he first met her, and she actually did make a big blunder in that case, like, because she did have an oversight. Like, in her investigations, I don't remember what it was, but she did actually look over a piece of evidence.
It wasn't something related to the magic box that she missed, and it was something that Apollo ended up catching.
And but it was an actual oversight. Like, she did miss it. But first off, his idea of a punishment isn't so mean, like all the others.
It's forcing her to do, like, what was it, a 9-hour marathon of praying or something?
Well, yeah, like but he has to sit with her and they do sermons together, like praying together or something. But it's like, okay, yeah, that sounds extremely boring and quite an unusual punishment, but at the same time, at least her payment is not getting docked. And the fact that he still wanted to bring her all the way to Karain to investigate, despite the fact that she made an oversight like that in the previous case, and that's one of the reasons he lost the case, it really speaks volumes that, okay, even though he was pretending to be a jerk the whole time, he obviously took a liking to her and thought, okay, this girl actually knows her stuff. And, I mean, he could have found any detective in Karain to do that stuff. But no. Emma.
Do they have any detectives, or do they just rely entirely on the seances?
I think they have police, because that's how that works.
They have police, but I don't know if they have detectives.
I would imagine they do.
But we don't know that they didn't even know anything about cross-examining, because they hadn't done it in 20 years.
But at the same time, Emma's not even a detective.
She's a forensics detective. Well, no, she actually did. She was a detective in Apollo.
She was a detective, but now she's a forensic investigator. So,
she's still qualified to do it, though.
And I'm like, but still, the fact that he felt that, it says that, okay, he was impressed with her. And I'm like, okay, so even back when you were pretending to be a jerk, it's still nice to know that he valued Emma, and I was like, okay, like that's kind of cool, but who knows? Like, granted, we'll have hopefully another game, and maybe we'll learn a little bit more about Nahyuta then, and really get a chance to see him shine.
Yeah, because we can't really measure his impact as a character because he was in the newest game.
It's the most recent.
Yeah, so until we get something more, because we know that the next game will feature something of Kurain. Hopefully, but so we know that we'll probably get more of him, and it'll be nice to see more of him after his character development.
And just more of him and Rafa especially, now that Rafa knows.
Yeah.
But Nahyuta, he's the character where our opinions did change.
Yeah. So the next one this is when we're going to start getting into the ones we have some negative opinions on. But it's not all hate.
But not in the way you think.
No, yeah. So we need to talk about Godot.
And first off, when I'll say with negative, it's not that I hate Godot.
In fact, both of us enjoy Godot as a character.
Very enjoyable. I hate his fan base. He's got a very misaimed fandom.
Well, yeah, there are a lot of people who think that they basically take him like they're like stans. They stan Godot, thinking that he didn't do nothing wrong, and I'm like, he literally committed murder. But go off, I guess.
And I sit there and I'm just like, cool motive, still murder.
Yeah.
Like.
Well, and it's like, and his story is really interesting, and this is one thing I really like about him, is you find out that he was Mia's mentor. He's the person who came up with a lawyer smiles till the end that Mia got that she passed on to Phoenix.
Well, and I think he's also the one who taught her to turn her thinking around too.
Yeah, you gotta turn your thinking upside down. You gotta change things around.
And that's where she passed that on to Phoenix, who then later.
Basically, a lot of what Phoenix knows came from him. But he's the prosecutor.
But he's a very fascinating character, and he's a great antagonist. Like, honestly, in terms of, like, not a rival, but a straight-up antagonist, a villain, like, he's fantastic, and he's so fantastically written, and he's great at that, and he's so fascinating, but his fan base really ticks me off because they miss the point of him. Because they always try to excuse his actions or make him as some poor innocent whoopee. Even Diego Godot himself was like, no, don't make excuses for me. I'm a killer.
Yeah. That was one of the things that really made me, because I was about to really hate him for what he did, killing Misty Faye. And then, but when he admitted, no, I'm a terrible person. I killed her just because she was channeling Dahlia, and I hated Dahlia. I lost it and went psycho. He says, I'm a killer, and arrest me for it. And I'm like,
says something about him that he's just like, no. He's like, because granted, you could say, well, he still was trying to cover himself up. Well, yeah, okay, there was really.
But once he got cornered, he didn't fight it.
He didn't. He just admitted it straight up. He's like, no. And even whenever Phoenix and Maya both tried to extend an olive branch, because Maya's like, no, he did nothing wrong. But that's because of, in Maya's mind, he protected her from being killed. Whereas Phoenix was trying to justify it, to like kind of give him a little olive branch, like, well, you were just trying to protect Maya, Mia's sister. That's why you did that, right? And he's just like, no. I just saw the woman I absolutely despised, and I lost it, and I killed her, and I tried to cover it up. He's just like, I'm guilty.
Even though he knew that Dahlia was already dead and that Misty was channeling her, which was all part of the plan.
Yeah, it was part of the plan because if they caught on to Morgan's plan, that would end up with Maya dead, and so that way Pearl could ascend and becoming to become the master, because that was all part of Morgan's plan. And Dahlia didn't care and to Dahlia, of course, she was in on it because she absolutely hated Mia.
She was going to kill her sister. And
as her revenge. So they both decided this was their revenge, But Misty caught wind of it and managed to inform Godot, and they formulated a plan that would protect Maya and Pearl too, so that way poor Pearl wouldn't have been an accessory to murder without even knowing it. But in that moment, Misty channeled Dahlia.
Godot lost it.
And for a moment, he forgot his plan. Well, him and Misty's plan, and he acted on his hatred.
and it's you really see just how far he had fallen. That the woman that he was working with, Mia's mother, he had a love for Mia, but he saw her mother channeling Dahlia, and he murdered her just to satisfy some petty revenge from years ago.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say it's petty, considering everything Dahlia is dead.
But like he knows that Dahlia is already dead.
Oh, he knows he's dead.
That he can't kill her because But
it was just some part of him probably still felt the need for revenge, because even though Dahlia was long gone and dead, like he personally wanted revenge because of what she'd done, because she was the reason he no longer can see properly. She was the reason he was in a coma for years.
And then when he came out, Mia was dead.
And he was so bitter and so angry and so hateful. And you could even see shades of it at the end of the flashback trial with Mia, because of whenever Dahlia pretty much got away scot-free.
When they knew that she was guilty.
And,
he crushes the cup.
And the defendant, killed himself because she manipulated this poor man into, like, just being her absolute slave, and he doesn't even realize how she just used him, just preyed on him, and how angry that made him. And it just, ever since then, he was so hyper-fixated on trying to uncover Dahlia. I mean, yeah, Mia wanted to prove her guilty too, but he was really hyper-fixated on it to the point that he almost could have proven her guilty, and then that's why Dahlia poisoned him, to try to eliminate him. But it just says something.
It grew to a total obsession.
Like how obsessed he became, and how it just. I am not a fan of the Godot Mia ship, but there's no denying he did have feelings for her. Yeah. Absolutely, he did.
Even if he was condescending to her in the flashback cases.
No, but even though he's kind of sexist,
yeah,
he did grow to have respect for Mia, despite the fact that, well, she's a woman. I mean, just looking at how he talked to Franziska, and even how he kind of like teased Mia a lot in her very first case, he did grow to respect her. But it shows how far that respect and that love went. Not nearly as far. Because even though it went far enough to want to protect Mia's sister, it didn't stop him from trying to kill Mia's mother. His hatred of Dahlia was stronger than his love for Mia, and that's one of the reasons why he's so fascinating to me.
Yeah, because if he was the source of so much inspiration for Mia and
by extension, Phoenix.
But he was the one who ended up becoming a villain.
Well, and he forgot the very principles that he taught Mia herself. Like, he forgot all those messages. So even whenever he's saying to Phoenix, like, you'll never be half the lawyer she was in that very final moment. Gosh, that trial was amazing. But, and then when he realized, even though Mia was literally standing right there being channeled through Pearl, he saw, whenever Phoenix was objecting, he saw Mia and Phoenix, and he realized, like, her legacy
lives on through him.
Lives on through Phoenix, and Phoenix is living the very principles that he taught Mia. So, in a sense, Phoenix is also living his legacy as a defense attorney. And that was the moment where he realized, I lost, and like that awesome, such an awesome moment.
Yeah.
But it was like, but he's so fascinating because of, if people don't talk about it enough, is how Godot is such a perfect foil to Phoenix.
Yeah.
But what were your feelings on that last case? Speaking of that last case, because honestly, that was the most memorable moment.
Yeah, I mean, even starting the game, I enjoyed Godot because he was so entertaining. He was so funny. His obsession with coffee was ridiculous.
I remember that post you made where you were talking about the prosecutors. They're like, I'm a prosecuting prodigy.
Edgeworth, he says, I'm a prosecuting prodigy who is known as the demon prosecutor. Then Manfred's like, I'm a prosecuting genius who has gone 40 years undefeated. And then Franziska's like, I'm a flawless child prodigy who became an attorney at 13. And then swallows coffee. What's a prosecutor? I made that when I started playing Trials and Tribulation because it was like, yeah, that was funny.
But like that is like all the other prosecutors, they have such a fearsome reputation from their very first impression. And when Godot first comes in, he like comes in like all like slob and smarmy. He's just like, yeah, he's like, you're gonna lose because I'm unbeatable. And the judge is like, oh my, I've never even heard of you, but you've never lost a case. You must be an incredible prosecutor. And he's like, nope, never won a case. And then they're like, wait, what? What do you mean you've never won a case? He's like, I'm unbeatable. I've never lost a case, but I've never won a case. This is my first case as a prosecutor. I'm just like, I have no idea what I'm in for.
I'm gonna like
but
you.
I'm gonna like it.
Well, and it's funny because this is the other turnaround. It's not quite the opposite of Nahyuta, but I really like Godot. But then you got to the end, you realize just who he was and what he did.
But yeah, first he was just funny.
Yeah.
And then you realize, oh,
there's a darker side to this, and then you actually get to the end where he basically turns himself in. He admits what he did, and he accepts. He accepts the consequences of his actions, and that made me respect his character.
Like, he actually, I mean, even though that whole moment he was fighting it, but in the end, whenever it was like all was said and done, he decided to be a graceful loser.
Yeah, and there was during that whole scene, there's a lot of memorable stuff at the end, but what the image that sticks with me the most is the scene where he's looking up and then you can see the blood coming down and it looks like he's crying blood. It's from his injury that he got from was it Maya? Was it or no? It was when he got Dahlia.
Yeah, when Dahlia was fighting off Godot, because Maya did say that for a brief moment she saw
red light,
which was his visor.
So yeah, and then he got hit there, and it was blood coming from the injury. But the way it was framed, it looked like he was crying blood as he gave up, and I was just like, that moment was just
such an image.
Yeah, it was like so cinematic. Really, it was memorable. It was iconic. Really,
it was very iconic.
And that image stuck with me out of that entire game. That was burned into my mind, and I'm just like, wow, like that moment with Godot was amazing. And that was the most memorable moment for me, at least.
And also, despite the fact that it's his first time being a prosecutor, the fact that he was so smart, because the fact that he got that one guy to kind of like, because he really hammered into that one case, the thieving case. Because then that guy was just like, he's like, no, I really did do it. And Phoenix is like, no, you didn't. Like, he's just a wannabe know-it-all. And then when Godot, like, is just like, okay, yeah. It's like, you didn't do it. He's just like, you didn't steal that stuff. And then you realize it was a ploy, because of then the other trial, because of then that guy no longer has the alibi for stealing, because of then he's
going to get arrested for
murder. And I'm just like, that is genius. Like, oh my gosh, like for a first-time prosecutor, that's diabolical. And the way he manipulated that guy too, because that guy was a bit weak-willed a little bit, very a bit of a pushover because of he's utterly whipped and wants to make his wife happy, and so instantly he kind of took a liking to Godot, because to him Godot is such a manly man and he's so suave, and he wants to be kind of like that kind of man for his wife.
Yeah.
So he literally would listen to anything Godot said, and I'm just like,
You poor innocent soul.
You poor innocent soul, but at the same time, he was using, because he can be charming. Like, that's probably why his music is a saxophone. But it's so memorable, but every time I hear that stupid saxophone, I think to myself, like, oh, here we go. Because then he'll be waxing some really confusing and stupid metaphor, which I'm like, how does that even apply? Or then there'll be other instances, I'm like, even the judge himself, and even Phoenix thinking to himself, wait, what is he trying to say? Like, is he trying to?
It's like he's trying to speak to me. I know it.
So, like, what's the metaphor? What does that have to do with anything? I don't know. But like he could be like really entertaining, and I'm annoyed how the fandom like just so misrepresents him. Because yes, I do feel sorry for him, but again, cool motive, still murder. And I'm like, but he's like, what's wrong with liking a tragic villain? Because there's villains who do horrible things
that you can understand. It's like, I can sympathize that Godot has suffered because of Dahlia. He went into a coma. He lost his vision. And
I can even understand that hatred, because, yes, Dahlia is absolutely a soulless monster.
Well, and you also see that even Phoenix suffered under Dahlia too.
Well, yeah, Phoenix and Mia, like, they all suffered.
But none of them let themselves become monsters.
Well, and Iris, and that's the other thing. He willingly was going to let Iris
take the fall
for the crime he committed. And it makes you wonder, was it because of she was once Phoenix's girlfriend and this was his way of getting vengeance at Phoenix, even though what does Phoenix have to do with anything? Oh, but like...
Or was it because
it was Dahlia's twin sister and it was just another extension of his hatred of Dahlia? I don't know. The game never states it, but it does have this heavy implication that it could have been both of those reasons.
That Iris didn't do anything wrong that would cause...
Well, she was another accomplice in the plan.
Yeah.
Like, she was because from that moment she found out what happened, and so the plan was then basically make it look like she was stabbed through that other sword. Granted, Sister Bikini wasn't supposed to see Iris do that, and I don't know who they were going to have take the fall for that crime, but obviously it wasn't intended to be Iris, because Iris was pleading not guilty, otherwise she wouldn't have gotten an attorney. But the fact that he would just do that to this innocent, sweet person.
Who, even though she was already an accessory to stuff Dahlia did in the past, she's living as a nun trying to just live her life now.
And even then, she was manipulated by Dahlia her whole life. Like, Dahlia was an absolute horrible person. Treated her sister like garbage, and is it any wonder that she just wanted to live her quiet, peaceful life with Sister Bikini and the temple? Because at the very least, it was a life free from all this manipulation or neglect or abuse from her horrible mother, her neglectful father, and her evil sister.
Yeah.
I'm like, can Iris catch a break? Can she also come back Capcom so she can live her happy life with Pearl? Because if those two deserve it. They're sisters, you know, whatever. Yeah. But it's just like, but that's another layer of like how his bitterness had warped him. And he's so fascinating. Godot is so fascinating. Why can't you people just acknowledge that he's such a fascinating villain?
You can like a villain, even if they are bad and do bad things. Like,
even if they're tragic.
Yeah, you can if you understand a villain.
One of the most famous villains of all time in cinema history, Darth Vader. Tragic? Yes. Evil? I mean, well, he murdered a lot of people, including several children, so yeah, I can sympathize with him, but he still did a lot of horrible things.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's just like...
It doesn't change the fact that he did horrible things, even though he does try to redeem himself at the very end by saving his son. That's one good act that brought him back to the good side.
One good act of multiple horrible acts. So it's just stopping the horribleness. That's for Darth Vader. But it's like, so Godot's done horrible things and turned into a horrible person, and finally he's owning up to it. Because he couldn't run from it anymore. And I'm like, but it makes him so fascinating. And the fact that he's such a perfect foil to Phoenix is so fascinating to me. Like, he is legit. Like, because I know people like to compare Phoenix and Edgeworth. And yes, Edgeworth is Phoenix's de facto rival / childhood friend. And I'm like, but in terms of like an actual foil, Godot is Phoenix's foil. Because of both of them once. Like, because it was his teachings that has become all part of like who Phoenix is and how he's an attorney.
And it's the stuff that he's even passed on to Apollo and Athena, even. So, you know,
but
all
at the
those
same time, Phoenix has also been in dark places in his life too. I mean, you have the stuff with Dahlia, but then you have later on when Phoenix was framed for losing his badge, and Phoenix himself admitted that he was in a really horrible dark place in his life, and if it wasn't for Trucy, Phoenix is like, I don't know what I would have become.
But it doesn't. But even then, he did not let himself. He dedicated himself to basically getting his revenge on Kristoff, but he didn't let that consume him.
No,
he did his planning. He did a lot of maniacal planning to get back at him.
But it's interesting that Phoenix would bring that up, and you wonder if that was always on Phoenix's mind, because maybe Phoenix thinks to himself, "What if Trucy never ended my life? What if?" Like, that's an interesting scenario to present. What if I had gone that far? Like, could he have? Granted, we'll never know, but that's almost a commentary. Granted, Godot still was a different attorney to Phoenix. I mean, first off, Phoenix wasn't kind of slightly sexist.
Yeah.
And I was like, but But still, it's the same, like, they basically were the same type of attorney in a sense. Believe your clients to the very end, turn your thinking around, smile to the very end. That's a lawyer's always smiles to the very end. Like, when a situation is most desperate, we smile.
Yeah.
Like, those were all his teachings that he passed on to Mia, which Mia passed on to Phoenix. Like, but that's what makes Godot so interesting. He's an interesting commentary of, like, if, and Mia too, in a sense, he's almost her foil too. If they let themselves be consumed by their bitterness when horrible things happen in their life, could they have turned into somebody like Godot? Like, granted, we'll never know, but it's interesting. Like, it's interesting. He's interesting.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind him coming back.
I would actually really like to see him come back, even if it's, you know, just for like a case where he's just sort of a side character. It would be interesting just to see him back after all the stuff had
and after all, maybe all this reflecting, see how he's changed over the years.
Yeah.
Like, would he slowly start to revert back to how he used to be?
Would he act more like Diego?
Or would he get worse? Like, we don't know. And I think it would be an interesting exploration. But let's get to probably the most evilest of evil.
So that was part 2 of the 3 parts. And of course, I'll have part 3 linked right here when that gets posted. If there's anything you want to talk about, anything you want to say about the prosecutors, anything about what we said in this video, please comment below, because I really want to hear your thoughts about the prosecutors. And of course, thank you for watching.